lateral process of each arytenoid cartilage. And they cause the arytenoid cartilage to rotate on its axis. The lateral cricoarytenoid muscles are difficult to see because they're, push my hands through there. They're between the thyroid cartilage and the arytenoid, and they're kind of coming from the side and up to the arytenoid. So you can see them. Let's see if I can find a real good image for them earlier. Here we go. So this is the lateral cricoarytenoid here. The thyroid cartilage has been cut away. And so it's coming off the cricoid cartilage on the side and wrapping up to attach to the arytenoid. So I'm going to put it in purple so you don't confuse it with the cricothyroid. It's doing that on the inside of the thyroid cartilage. So you can see it on this model, but you have to look inside here between the two, between the cricoid and the thyroid cartilage, and you will see it. And finally, the last two, one is actually really a set. So if we look on the arytenoid itself, there are a pair of muscles that go transversely connecting the two arytenoid cartilages, and then they're crisscrossed by the oblique arytenoids. Okay? So this muscle is just named for the cartilage to which it attaches. So we have the transverse arytenoid, kind of like a gate that's stabilized by cross pieces. And then we have the transverse. And then the easiest one of all, looking down inside the larynx. Let me move this picture up. See it a little bit better. We have this not this one here, but this innermost muscle is found just lateral, partially covering the vocal ligaments. And that's the vocalis. Do you have this diagram in your lecture notes? On page 19. So cricothyroid attaches to the thyroid cartilage and pulls it down anteriorly. So it's going to do this function. So that's similar to the action if you're tuning a guitar or a violin or bass viol or whatever, and you turn the pegs and tighten the strings. What happens to the pitch? Goes up. Okay, so the same thing happens to the pitch of the voice. When you tilt, contract the cricothyroid, it tightens the vocal ligaments and raises the pitch of the voice. Right? The vocalis muscle is the antagonist to that. So the vocalis muscle is on the inside, and it's going to pull the thyroid cartilage back towards the arytenoid cartilages. So vocalis is going to relax the vocal ligaments, and it's going to lower tension. Lower the pitch. Now the posterior cricoarytenoids are these down here, remember? On the posterior surface of the cricoid cartilage. They pull on these lateral corners of the arytenoid cartilages and they open up the space between the two vocal ligaments.
Which one is that?
The posterior one, so you can see this diagram right here, so they're opening it up. So that's abduction, separating them, moving them away from the midline. So that's going to increase the amount of air that goes through the airway. And the lateral ones oppose that. So the lateral ones pull the arytenoid cartilages and swing them back around to cause abduction, as do the arytenoids. So the arytenoids are going to, lateral and the arytenoids are going to do the same thing. They're both going to close the space between the vocal ligaments. So when you cough, obviously we do this all the time when we're talking, but when you cough, you increase the pressure of the air molecules in the airspace by raising the diaphragm and decreasing the volume, and that's putting pressure, but you don't let that air escape by closing the space between the vocal ligaments, and then you open that suddenly and there's this explosive release of air. It can travel about 100 miles per hour in that first cough, and that's because you're building up that pressure by closing the space between the ligaments first and then rapidly opening them. All right, let's stop there and take a break, and then when we come